Jenny Slate has finally made a comment about the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively lawsuit, and I don't know if this is going to disappoint.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are now fully in crisis management mode after Justin Baldoni scored another crushing courtroom victory. This latest twist just pulled Jenny Slate straight into the chaos, and it's making Blake and Ryan appear even more compromised than they already did. Blake's lawsuit was already teetering on thin ice, but now that the public is discovering the actual details of Jenny's involvement, the entire saga is starting to look seriously questionable. The evidence isn't doing them any favors either. With sloppy court filings, crumbling allegations, and inconsistencies stacking higher by the day, this is rapidly spiraling into a public relations nightmare they can't talk their way out of. And the real bombshell? Blake's lawyers just played a desperate card by labeling Jenny Slate as one of the alleged victims from the It Ends With Us production. That single maneuver has everyone side-eyeing them and demanding real answers. So let's unpack exactly how Jenny got dragged into this circus to begin with. Now, for anyone who hasn't watched It Ends With Us, here's the brief plot recap. Jenny Slate portrays Alyssa, the sister of Justin Baldoni's character Ryle, and sister-in-law to Blake Lively's Lily Bloom. On screen, when Lily finally confesses that Ryle is abusing her, Alyssa backs her choice to walk away. Typical movie drama, right? Not even close. Off-screen, Jenny apparently raised her own issues about the set. That's where everything turns ugly. Blake somehow decided to weave Jenny's complaint into her own legal action, as though it bolstered her narrative. The public was stunned when the real story behind Jenny's grievance started spreading. Even more baffling, Justin Baldoni had zero involvement in whatever Jenny objected to. Yet Blake's team somehow packaged it as evidence of a broader pattern. Now there's serious chatter that Jenny might actually be forced to testify. Yes, it's reaching that level of intensity. Before we dig into Jenny's specific grievance and why it's torpedoing Blake's case, you have to grasp the real dynamic between Jenny and Blake behind the cameras. Once you understand how tightly these two were aligned, the current courtroom mess suddenly becomes crystal clear. This wasn't some superficial co-star bond. The loyalty was fierce. And that fierce loyalty is precisely what makes this entire debacle so tangled. First things first, just like Brandon Sklenar, Jenny Slate wasn't merely standing beside Blake. She was fiercely defending her. When the Baldoni scandal erupted, Jenny issued a powerful public statement describing Blake's allegations as terribly dark, disturbing, and completely menacing. She didn't stop there. Jenny doubled down with a longer post that left no doubt she was all in for Blake, writing, "As Blake Lively's castmate and friend, I declare my full support as she fights back against those accused of orchestrating a calculated assault on her reputation. Blake is a leader, a fiercely loyal friend, and a dependable source of emotional strength for me and countless others who know and love her." But here's the pivot. While Jenny was standing rock solid for Blake, the internet refused to accept it without scrutiny. Old footage resurfaced, clips of Jenny casually admitting to physically striking her ex, Chris Evans. Suddenly, the innocent supporter image looked far less pristine. We'll return to that shortly. For now, let's examine how Blake formally pulled Jenny's name into her revised complaint. Listen carefully, because this is where the whole narrative begins to fall apart. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Justin Baldoni wasn't the only one facing accusations of inappropriate conduct on set. The publication uncovered fresh details about an issue raised by It Ends With Us actress Jenny Slate. Her name appeared in filings, initially redacted. The issue arose from a conversation with producer Jamie Heath about an upscale New York apartment Jenny rented during filming. Based in Los Angeles with a young child, Jenny had to relocate temporarily and secured a luxury unit. She later told Heath she was dissatisfied with it, but couldn't move without forfeiting a massive security deposit, reportedly around $155,000. Sources say Heath informed her that Wayfarer Studios would cover the forfeited deposit so she could relocate to something better. Jenny, however, later claimed the manner in which he presented the offer made her deeply uncomfortable, alleging he heavily emphasized the sanctity of motherhood and her maternal role. Sony reportedly learned of her discomfort and notified Wayfarer. Stop and think about that for a moment. Jenny disliked her apartment, voiced her dissatisfaction, and when offered a $155,000 resolution, She claimed the phrasing itself violated her boundaries. That single detail set the internet ablaze. Online backlash has been relentless. Comments include lines like, "As a woman and a mother myself, it's insane to criticize someone for honoring your parental role." These kinds of complaints are actually insulting to those who've endured genuine harm. Another user wrote, "She lodged a complaint because a producer offered to help her relocate for her daughter's well-being and used the phrase sanctity of motherhood. Let that marinate." This is the exact incident Blake's team is now citing as supporting evidence, and Justin Baldoni wasn't even part of it. The public has thoroughly dissected this supposedly egregious exchange. The overwhelming consensus? It wasn't remotely HR-worthy. Most people say they'd kill for a boss who notices you're struggling and actually steps up to help. But apparently Jenny saw it differently, allegedly recasting a generous gesture as offensive. That's where heads really start scratching. It gets even more complicated. Sources say Heath's wording stemmed from the personal convictions of Baldoni, Heath, and Wayfarer co-founder Steve Sarowitz, devout members of the Baha'i faith, which strongly emphasizes equality, justice, and the sanctity of motherhood. Far from dismissive or creepy, the language was reportedly grounded in those principles. Jenny still labeled it as over the line. To be crystal clear, this grievance had absolutely nothing to do with Justin Baldoni. It was entirely about Heath extending financial assistance while expressing concern for Jenny's child. This aligns with Sony's prior confirmation that no formal HR complaints were ever filed against Baldoni during production. Yet somehow Blake's attorneys highlighted this exact episode in her amended filing to suggest she wasn't the only one raising issues about Justin and Heath. With the full picture now public, people are calling it a desperate reach. If this is Blake's smoking gun, it's firing blanks. Many now view her as far less credible than before. Some outright reject her version entirely. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's support keeps growing as more individuals distance themselves from Blake's circle. The tide is turning quickly, and a growing number believe Blake isn't uncovering genuine wrongdoing. She's hurling allegations wildly, hoping something lands. Unfortunately for Jenny Slate, the backlash doesn't end there. Once the internet detects hypocrisy or mean girl vibes, it digs deeper. What surfaced from Jenny's past is far more damning than her apartment complaint. An old podcast clip with Anna Faris resurfaced, showing Jenny laughing while recounting how she repeatedly struck her then-boyfriend Chris Evans. The casual tone didn't help. "Never hit anybody as much as I hit Chris. I slap him so much. I came back from making our movie and hit some of my friends because I was so used to just hitting Chris all the time. I hit my husband and he was like, 'Nobody likes that. You shouldn't hit people.' And I was like, 'Oh my God, you're right. There's only one person.' I realized he was letting me do it." The shocking part wasn't just the admission. It was the light-hearted, joking delivery, treating physical aggression like a punchline. But what she described is straightforward domestic violence. Period. As a comedian, Jenny may have thought humor would soften it, but the internet wasn't having it. People immediately highlighted the glaring double standard and refused to let it slide. And now this is the individual Blake Lively is presenting as corroborating evidence. The same woman who filed an HR issue over a reference to motherhood while accepting a massive financial remedy. This is the witness Blake's team is pinning hopes on. Hardly a convincing strategy. It's also prompting questions about the circle Blake keeps, as the pattern of tone-deaf conduct becomes harder to ignore. Remember, Jenny and Chris Evans ended things years ago, and he has repeatedly declined to speak about it publicly, making it clear he wants no part in revisiting the past. Fans are now openly wondering why. Another jaw-dropping detail. Reports say Jenny accepted the $155,000 reimbursement anyway, despite her complaint. That didn't exactly bolster her credibility. Shifting focus slightly, Baldoni's legal team, led by Brian Friedman, remains aggressive and laser-focused on dismantling Blake's claims. With every new revelation, escaping scrutiny is becoming impossible for her. You'd expect things to quiet down while awaiting court dates, but the drama only escalates. Despite failing to gain real momentum, Blake's side keeps trying to spin Jenny's situation as proof of a Baldoni-led smear campaign. That framing simply isn't sticking. Most emerging details about Jenny aren't coming from Baldoni's camp at all. They're surfacing via independent creators, especially TikTok users who followed this case obsessively from the start. Rumors also suggest Blake's team approached Jenny about formally joining the lawsuit, but she wisely declined, arguably the sharpest move she's made in this mess. Even without officially aligning, her mere association is tarnishing her reputation. Baldoni's attorney has already dismissed Blake's amended filing as underwhelming, pointing to scant hard evidence and heavy reliance on anonymous sources, many of whom now reportedly want distance from the case. Upcoming depositions from former allies and witnesses promise to be explosive. The harsh reality: documents don't lie. At this moment, Blake Lively simply lacks the proof to back her accusations. Per Friedman, even cast members who once rallied behind her are quietly retreating. More revelations are incoming. Jenny Slate, along with Taylor Swift, is reportedly scheduled for deposition. Brace yourselves, this saga is nowhere near finished. It's also glaringly obvious that certain media outlets have been reckless with their coverage. Stories get rushed out without proper verification, then quietly corrected days later once the damage is done. The Hollywood Reporter, deeply entrenched in this Blake versus Baldoni story, is now facing intense skepticism over its handling. Jenny's case perfectly illustrates the eroding trust. Initially, THR reported she filed a formal HR complaint. Days later, the article was silently edited to claim no complaint was filed. She merely voiced discomfort, which was then linked to broader unease among women. Then, inexplicably, it flipped back to the original formal complaint narrative. No explanation, no editor's note, just stealth changes. Readers caught it instantly and demanded better standards. When outlets make silent revisions, it doesn't look like accountability. It looks sloppy and untrustworthy. The internet misses nothing, and independent creators tracking this drama flagged the flip-flopping immediately. Once again, poor journalism sowed confusion rather than clarity. People are now trying to identify exactly which women Blake claims are ready to testify on her behalf. Frankly, picture Jenny Slate on the stand explaining she felt violated because someone offered her $155,000 to improve her living situation. That's hardly the devastating testimony Blake's side implies. There weren't many women on set to begin with. With Jenny's story fully exposed, that leaves figures like Isabella Ferrer, who, per Baldoni's countersuit, actually thanked him for maintaining a safe, respectful environment. If Blake has another witness in mind, they haven't emerged yet. Consider the timeline too. Trial isn't scheduled until March 2026. That's a long wait. Meanwhile, new evidence keeps surfacing, and not a single major development has favored Blake. This story is only growing more chaotic, convoluted, and impossible to control. Stay locked in. The updates aren't slowing down anytime soon.